I know it's getting to be lunchtime. A lot of you are probably thinking of leaving. I encourage you to stay for this next panel because it's about something very important. Pop quiz to wake you up. What is the most valuable thing in the world? Shout it out at me. Prove that you're awake. Health, yes. Someone either looked at the agenda or has his priorities right. A+ to you, sir. This next panel is about AI's healing touch. We're going to be looking at algorithms to medical cures and everything in between. Please give a warm welcome to this next panel. It's going to be moderated by Leah Osman-Megera of Bitkom. Welcome, Leah, and all of our panelists.
Well, thank you very much for the nice introduction, Sarah, and welcome everybody to our next panel on AI and health. And I am super happy to see so many faces here, even though it's almost lunchtime. But I promise you, you will not regret that you stayed here. And even though I am very excited to be here today to moderate this talk, I would like to start off with a rather worrying fact, actually. If you don't know, I don't know if you've heard, but in Germany, each year, thousands of people suffer from damages which are caused by medical errors. And some of these medical errors even result in the patient's death. Now, why is that? It is because we do not have enough doctors, and those doctors who work in the hospital often have to work overtime. Do you think AI will be able to help us solve these problems? And would you rather be diagnosed and treated by a human doctor or by a perfect machine? Within the next 30 minutes, I am happy to discuss these questions and more questions with my wonderful panelists over here. They all work for different companies who have taken on the important task to protect one of our most important assets, our health, with the help of artificial intelligence. I'm happy to welcome Tamara Gerbert from Brightmind.AI, Florian Bontrup from DOCYET, and Uwe Heckert from Philips. Thank you very much for coming. So the first question I would like to ask you, Uwe, where do you actually see the potentials of AI in the health sector?
I mean, first of all, the potential is huge. If you look at the challenges the healthcare industry is facing, you see that we are just overwhelmed with data. We alone, we basically have 275 million patients that we monitor every year. We have more than 20 petabytes of data. So the complexity is increasing. We are all getting older. We go more often to the doctor. The supply of healthcare, so the doctors, the nurses, everything is actually limited or even shrinking. So there is actually a huge challenge that we see. And what AI will help with is to turn these sheer volumes of complex data into actionable insights. And that goes into a few directions. One is related to workflow. So we improve the operations of a hospital or a radiology chain, as an example. So the keyword is triaging, find out, who needs to go where, what is the patient flow, to really make it efficient. The second thing that is what you already addressed, is basically the clinical outcome. So we are in the industry of radiology. We create images. We need to interpret the images. This is basically also, errors are happening. So AI will help to improve the clinical outcomes in that matter. The third thing is it gives the patients, the customers, a bit more right, to decide on their own where they go, what they do. We are all laughing sometimes, if you go to a doctor and the doctor asks, what do you have? And then you say, I Googled it already, This will come more and more. Yeah? So we connect data from wearables. You are basically having other things, which are wired to you. So there is a huge volume of data that needs to be processed, and you can decide as a patient or as a customer what you want to do. And the last thing I want to mention is for population health is also important. So prevention is the key word. So to detect mega trends, what to do, where to do what. So these are a few things which we see where AI will have a huge impact.
Yeah, thank you very much for these insights. What do you think, Tamara? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Can you add anything?
I definitely agree. I mean, you're hearing about the potential of data everywhere. I think one thing I'm particularly excited about as well with the potential of AI is right now we're working with human language and computer vision, and these AI breakthroughs have been in areas that are very intuitive for us. So we haven't really advanced our knowledge. However, with genetic data, with us, it's brain recording EEG data, protein structures. These are all places where we're feeding into an AI model data that we don't understand as well. And so what I find really exciting is that we will actually further our human knowledge and understanding as well with some of AI technologies there.
Oh, great, thanks. And you, Florian, do you have anything to add or agree?
Well, obviously, I agree on the potential of AI and also the vast resources of unused data that is there so far. The thing is, I believe we should shift the discussion from, well, all these things are possible. Sure, they are possible. To the discussion like, why are we not doing it yet? And also, maybe there isn't even a choice. I mean, we have a growing demand. People are getting sicker, older. At the same time, we get doctors are retiring in a few years, especially in Germany. So we have to start doing stuff now to really deal with this in 2, 3, 5 years down the line. And I think this is what we should really concentrate on, remove those hurdles and get things moving.
Yeah, well, thanks all of you for these first insights. And as I said earlier, all of you are working for companies who somehow build AI products. So what I think would be interesting for the audience to know is like what exactly you are working on right now. And maybe Florian, your company, you work on AI-driven applications for care coordination and for virtual care management. Could you elaborate a little what it is that you're doing exactly?
Sure. So luckily, that explanation gotten easier in the last 6 months. You all know ChatGPT, right? So yeah. The thing is, you can talk with it, right? It's an AI, a conversational intelligence that you can talk with, and it can do stuff that we thought only humans can do. The thing is, if you want to use similar technology in healthcare, and it makes medical decisions, it's assessing risks, triaging, all the things Uwe just said, ChatGPT might be able to do those things, might. The thing is, it's not allowed to. We have lots of regulations covering medical applications like drugs, and we have to license this, we have to certify it. And what my company is doing, we develop medical chatbots that are certified medical devices, and we're using them to streamline patient processes with insurance companies, with hospitals, with doctors, making healthcare and the healthcare system more efficient, but also enabling new kinds of interventions, care coordination that haven't been possible so far if we're going to start using all that data that is available. Yeah?
Yeah, thank you so much. This sounds so helpful, especially in Berlin, where you sometimes wait for a doctor's appointment for like half a year. So this does sound good. And Tamara, how do you help patients concretely with Brightmind.AI?
So we're working on non-invasive brain stimulation, which is a way of creating large magnetic pulses at a specific frequency in a specific region of the brain. Our first application is migraine prevention. Now, this technology already exists and has huge potential, but it's only in specialized hospitals. What we're doing is we're bringing it home, and we're also recording brain activity and adapting the exact stimulation parameters to recorded brain activity. And it's been shown that depending on where your actual brain activity is, the same stimulation can have absolutely opposite effects. So we're optimizing brain stimulation by really including monitoring data.
Thank you. Sounds super interesting, and yeah, I am very keen on getting to know more about your products. And Uwe, at Philips, what is like the most exciting product you are currently working on? Can you like pick something, or do you have?
Maybe as a first statement, and I want to pick up on what Tim Höttges said before. He mentioned that the companies invest only 1% in R&D, basically. We invest as Philips 9% of our total revenue in R&D, so it's by far more than $1 billion.
That's impressive.
60% is going in software. The majority in the meantime is going in AI, so we have a lot of AI applications we are working on. Maybe two things which I want to call out. One is in the area of radiology. So we all know, we are producing CTs, MRs, X-rays, and there is a lot of images that are basically being coming in. And what we do is we're going to help the radiologists to digest, to basically process all these images. We have an AI manager that is basically a kind of a platform where we can plug in applications for knee, for bone, for whatever you have, for oncology. And that is actually a thing which is really helping to basically improve the outcome, what I mentioned. So doing less errors, fewer errors, and also being more efficient. So we basically help the radiologists to also prioritize, what needs to come first, who needs to come second, what is actually really an issue, where do we need to look after again. And the second thing we are doing very much is in the area of monitoring. I mentioned that we have millions of basically patients. There are also a lot of data being collected, vital data, blood, heart, I don't know what, and variables in the future. So we help to digest these data so that we basically can cope also with this alarm fatigue, so that we can really separate what is really an issue, where needs the doctor to intervene and come, and where is it actually just an alarm that can be handled an hour from now. So it's always related to these two things, efficiency on the one hand side, clinical outcome on the other side. We work with partners, we provide platforms, because we cannot develop all the apps on our own. And we basically provide the integration.
That sounds super interesting. Thank you so much. And is that something that you would say, because you're using, I would say, the metadata, because you have so much data of your patients, is that something you could maybe also work with, or would you say it's similar to your product?
Well, obviously, I would love to have all the data Uber has. And maybe that's one of the reasons why collaboration yet between all the different stakeholders is not there where it could be. Because obviously, everybody wants to keep their data. So we have been telling the story of data as the new oil for at least 10, 15 years now. That is understood. We have not understood and started using it, though. And at some point, that has to happen. But yeah, metadata is one of the most interesting ones, not only in hospitals, also we work more with insurance companies. Insurance companies know when you have been to the doctor the last time. They know that you have had handed in a sick leave. They know that there has been a hospital bill. They all know these things afterwards and with a little delay, but they could use that data not to deny claims. Public health insurance companies don't do that in Germany, but they could actually warn you about health risks. So let's start doing that.
Yes. So we mentioned data a lot now, which leads perfectly to my next question, because after highlighting the potentials, I would like to talk about the actual hurdles that you see. On the one hand, the technological hurdles, where you see that the technology is not mature enough yet, but also maybe the regulatory hurdles. Since I'm a lawyer, I cannot get you going without asking this question about the regulation. I mean, you all work in a very highly regulated sector. How do you feel about both technological and regulatory hurdles? I don't know, whoever wants to go first.
I can start if you want. I see a few hurdles. One hurdle that we have in the healthcare industry is certainly the area of interoperability. Everybody is talking about this forever already. So it's basically, all the devices are homegrown, not connected, no interface. So that is a big challenge with the Hospital Future Act, the Krankenhauszukunftsgesetz. We try to overcome this to a high degree, and we do. But interoperability is a key thing, because AI needs to work with many data, ideally with many different data, and so you need to connect this.
Do you guys agree on that? Is that something you also feel like in your day-to-day life is a hurdle, the interoperability with other deployers?
It would be even better if there would be more connected data, but even getting single sources of data would be good. I mean, it just gets better the more connected data you have, but most of the time, you don't need the most sophisticated AI algorithm trained on so many data. If you train one on so little data, it would be already pretty good, and then you make it better over time. So
Okay, yeah,
50-50.
Okay.
I think it's very different for a small startup where our problem is not that we have so much data that we have to leverage.
Yeah.
Our problem is rather collecting the relevant data. So we have different challenges in that sense.
Okay, yeah, that's super interesting to hear this, very different perspectives. But I didn't want to interrupt you. You were not finished yet with the hurdles. Many hurdles.
Well, there are not so many hurdles.
Okay.
The second thing I want to call out is trust. Yeah? So people need to believe in what they get out. Yeah? So it's a bit also like the car industry. You have assisted driving. So the car is telling you, hey, you should actually stay in your lane, and at some point in time, the car takes over. This is the future. And the same holds true for what I talked about in radiology. Yeah? So there's a big discussion going on. Do we need radiologists in the future? Is it actually possible that a machine can do this? So trust needs to be generated as well. That's the second thing. And the third thing is also legislation, data protection, data security. But I would say we tend to push this in the front, and everybody says, yeah, we cannot do this because of data protection rules. There's a lot possible already today if the different players in the industry and the healthcare sector as such, are going to work together. If they want it, there's a lot possible already today.
Well, thank you. It's very interesting that you point out the topic of trust, because I think that's something not only in the healthcare sector, but maybe there especially, because health is such an important asset that we have. Do you feel like in your day-to-day lives, people don't trust in your technology? People have a problem with trusting? Both?
So, non-invasive brain stimulation, most people first don't know what it is. There's actually a very different positioning to brain stimulation in US than there is in Europe. So in Europe, people are less trusting in that sense, but I think that's just going to be a mental shift.
Okay, thank you.
Wow.
And you?
I think trust is super important. However, in practice, it's actually not that relevant. So we did a lot of studies actually on how, for example, when we design a chatbot, should it behave like a human? Should it be recognizable as an artificial intelligence? Turns out it should be an AI. It shouldn't pretend to be a human. And then in practice, with working with practitioners, doctors, we come slowly to the point that the pain in healthcare with all the people working inside of it is so steep that people don't choose to trust AI or software systems. They just accept that they have to because there's little alternatives. So it's more and more built in more and more software products. And also because there's so many patients with so little time, you have to use technology to kind of deal with the situation. Is that ideal? No. Obviously, it would be better if people would wooing for it and say, yeah, I want to do it. And there are these doctors. But others would just come along because they have to. And I think, therefore, trust and acceptance is important, but not the most common, not the biggest hurdle.
And so you think we could overcome the problem with trust with just having no alternatives,
we work
no
with
way around?
patients, so patients have to use a chatbot and enter health data voluntarily themselves. It's not data that has been collected by the doctor and accepted. People have to enter their health data, the most sensitive stuff.
Yeah.
So obviously it needs to be safe, and you need to not only make it safe, you have to be able to communicate to the patient that it's safe. And this is what the patient needs to trust in, nothing else.
Yeah.
IBM actually showed studies that children were more likely to tell an artificial AI doctor that looked a bit cartoon-like all of their information than a real human, which surprised me at the time.
But that's the potential. The current healthcare system, patients might be ashamed, even elderly ones. People might not speak the language. And what kind of services, healthcare services, do we offer here for people that don't speak German? Very little. So I think that's the tremendous chance what we could use technology for, not replacing anyone, but offering situations and care in situations that haven't been possible so far.
But I think, when it comes to trust, I think for the user to use a chatbot, it's not really a huge trust hurdle that has to be be entered, so it's not much of an issue maybe for you. But I mean, I think what he was referring to is that there needs to be more trust in AI in general to also have regulatory shifts. At the moment, AI is still not allowed to do a full diagnosis. It's not really allowed to interfere in therapy unless it's extremely regulated. So it doesn't really intervene as much at the moment. It's more recommendation. So if it wants to go into that direction, I think trust is probably very important.
Yes, I totally agree, yes. Is there anything you wanted to add to this? Or yeah.
The trust piece again, at the end of the day, AI should help to improve the outcome, but also to make it more efficient. What must not happen is that we have a radiologist, as an example, looking at the image, and an AI, and a second and a third AI, and then actually the radiologist is forced to look at all the AIs, what they are telling him, and then because then the workload is higher and not lower. So the radiologist, and eventually also the patient, they need to basically have confidence in what they are getting there.
Yeah, of course.
We tend to accept or expect actually 100% being right. We don't expect this from a doctor actually. We expect it from the AI. So this is a big area, where we need to work on. Yeah.
Okay, so fostering trust is one very important thing that needs to be done. Now I could say, does regulation foster this kind of trust? Do you think that regulation plays an important role by making people feel more safe with the use of AI? Would you say?
You said?
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's about patient safety and security. Patients expect that whatever they get as a treatment or as a diagnosis or whatever, that this is really proven. That's why we have laws, that's why we have MDR and all these things.
Yeah.
So it's an important element that we have. It should not hinder us to do more. So it's also a bit of a crunch that we are in.
How do you feel right now? Do you feel like regulation legislation is more on the side of hindering or more of the same?
As I said before, I think legislation, we tend to basically always say data protection and legislation is all bad. I think if the players in the healthcare ecosystem, especially in Germany as an example, would want to work more together instead of trying to protect their own territory, we would be already better off. We could already gain 20-30% of the advantages. So I'm not so concerned about the legislation.
What about the other panelists? Because you work in very much smaller companies. How do you feel towards regulation? Is that something you worry more about?
So I think one thing you do have to look out for is how are you maybe just incentivizing startups, for example, to go to a different country. So for us, for example, the MDR regulation, it just takes too long, and time is something that's important. So we're going to the FDA first, which might be a shame in some ways because we're a European company. So I think that's just something to look out for. Are you really achieving safety, or are you just giving a competitive advantage to other countries?
I also think, so as a small company, your only advantage is that you are fast, right? So maybe a little bit faster than Philips by design. But the thing is, with all these processes you need to set up, all these legislation you need to fulfill, we basically get as slow as any big corporate. And we are worse at it because we are not experienced in having like all these processes. The big corporate is. Yeah. So I think the more regulation there is, the slower we get. At the same time, obviously, it increases trust, but it nivelates any given advantage you could have as a small company. At the same time, obviously, you have less resources. So a big corporate has one big system. You can use it for 20 different medical products. We have 3 medical products. So the share and time spent on compliancy and all these processes is much higher compared with a big organization. So it doesn't improve our chances, to put it that way.
And do you have any idea how to solve this problem? Like, would you have any,
None. So I would not say to get rid of it.
Yeah.
I think it's important to have regulation. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, let's focus not on creating paperwork and documentation, because that actually isn't making anything safer. And in the last years, any given regulation, medical device regulation, GDPR, that all was a job program for lawyers. No, but not so much
Not a
for
bad thing
actually
for me.
improving products, and that's the problem. So regulation, yes, but maybe smarter and not the way it is right now.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, what we do in Philips is, I mean, we also work a lot with startups. We have in Hamburg, in our headquarters, we have a health innovation pod, and there are a number of startups allocated there, and they are basically the members, the sponsors of this pod is a health insurance company, it's a hospital, it's Philips.
Your port is great. I was there.
We basically help startups really to get over this, to connect them, basically to fast track things, just to enable this, because we see the same thing, or we heard the same thing also from these companies there. It's just a sheer volume, because if they want to license a product, it takes them as long as us, but you don't have the resources.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. Do you have anything to add to the solution part, or would you say?
I mean, I completely agree with his point, right?
Yeah.
I think it is just paperwork, right, for
Yeah.
us. I mean, part of our hiring now of our engineers is, are you willing to do paperwork? Because you'll have to, right? So I
in
don't
Germany,
know
we
what
love
that's
the
really.
paperwork, right? It's something we
Yes,
have in our
but we
DNA.
also want fast, innovative engineers that
Of course.
that have that agile thinking. So it's a challenge. But yeah, so I mean, I think it's definitely not the smartest way of doing it. I can't tell you exactly concretely how to change it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, then I think our time is almost up. Thank you so much for your insights, and I hope that everyone had a interesting panel here. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right.